Hi everyone, this is Tim Niddle with Distilled Living, and I'll talk to you about some terms used in the bourbon industry that get bandied about a lot but have some confusion about them sometimes. And this is around batch sizing and the amount of barrels that go into your bourbon, into a bottle. And at the biggest scale, we have hundreds to thousands of barrels dumped together in a really, really big batch. And this is how you get Maker's Mark, Wild Turkey 101, Jim Beam White Label, Buffalo Trace, real big products like that, big sellers. And all those barrels dumped together really homogenizes the flavor profile and creates a consistency batch to batch, year to year. And nobody's ever come up with a term for that. I just use the term big batch because that seems pretty representative. It seems pretty clear about what you've got going on there. Now, one step down in terms of size, you're going to get the small batch term. Now, a lot of people get really excited about that. There are small batch tastings, a lot of small batch releases. There's no formal definition for small batch. The term was coined by Booker No of Jim Beam back in 1987 for Booker's Bourbon. And he was describing a batch smaller than Jim Beam White Label that was hand-picked barrels. He went out to the warehouses, found a bunch of barrels that had a flavor profile that he wanted when he mixed them together. Subsequently, it became the entire Jim Beam small batch collection. So we're looking at Baker's, Basil Hayden's, Knob Creek. So it became very important in the industry. It was followed up by Wild Turkey producing Rare Breed, and then the standalone Woodford Reserve product, which was always a small batch product, debuted in 1996. And what all those had in common were the barrels were hand-picked in smaller lots to produce a different flavor profile than the regular product. So Russell's Reserve, in addition to being a little bit older, it's a 10-year product versus Wild Turkey 101. The barrels are individually selected in smaller amounts, smaller batch sizes, to make the Russell's Reserve product and make it have a consistent different flavor profile, even though Wild Turkey only has one recipe that they use for their products. And a lot of other bourbons have now come out as small batch. It's kind of a term that's almost losing its meaning a little bit. At one point I saw that Starbucks was doing small batch coffee, so I figure maybe it's jumped the shark a little bit, but it's still a really popular, really common thing. And it can go all the way down to a batch of two. Woodford Reserve's personal selection, they call it the world's smallest small batch because it's just two barrels batched together. Now, one step down from that, we get into single barrel. The single barrel, as the name implies, is just one barrel made into however many bottles it makes, usually between 180 to 280 bottles. So you take one barrel of bourbon, bottle it up, then you move on to the next barrel of bourbon. So every barrel will have a slightly different flavor profile. This was first introduced in 1984 with Blanton's, very famously as the first modern single barrel bourbon. That was their claim to fame. So each barrel of Blanton's was individually selected for not a consistent flavor profile, but a flavor profile goal nonetheless. So they wanted Blanton's to be within a narrow range, and each time a barrel hit that, regardless of how long it took to get there, that's when they bottled it up. And they all had a little variance barrel to barrel. And that's taken off in huge popularity recently. A lot of single barrel products in the market, and then there are barrel picks. So if you go into your major retail stores or big restaurants and bars, they'll have a whole lot of barrel picks and barrel selections. So these are single barrels where the owners or the beverage manager, somebody like that, has gone to the distillery, usually that's how they do it, and picked from a range of barrels that they were presented and said, oh, here's this barrel, I really love this one, bottle this one up, I'll take all the bottles that come out of that barrel. So there you have, we have big batch, small batch, single barrel. At one point they did get confused up. Russell's Reserve small batch released a single barrel version, and somebody in the marketing department thought it would be a good idea to say Russell's Reserve small batch single barrel, which makes no sense because it's either a batch or it's a single, one or the other. Subsequently, they updated the packaging to reflect that after consumers pointed out that didn't make much sense. But big batch, small batch, single barrel. Thanks for watching.